Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Kneat webinar. Or if you haven't joined us yet, welcome to our Kneat webinar. This time is we are joined by our partner ALTEN to present on this webinar about USP 665 and your 2026 compliance playbook. My name is James Carey. I'm the digital marketing events manager here at Kneat. Happy to have you here. I'm just going to go through a few housekeeping items here before we get started. So you are in listen-only mode for today. No need to worry about being on camera or on video with us. You can just watch and enjoy. There are a few ways you can still engage with us, though, so we highly encourage you check out the engagement panel. It should be on the right-hand side of your video. There are 3 different tabs in there. The first one being our chat tab. I've put in a chat already. Let us know who you are, who you're with, where you're joining from. Feel free to put any comments, anything you want to engage with in the chat there. Our speakers likely won't be able to watch it while they're presenting live, but Kneat and Kneat representatives are going to be in there able to answer some basic questions or chat along with you. Now, if you have a question for our panelists or for our speakers, don't put that in the chat. Put that in the Q&A box. That'll help us moderate them, make sure that they're seen later, and follow up if we don't get you an answer right away. So that's the second one in there is Q&A. Feel free to put in those questions at any time for our speakers as they come up. And then finally is the poll tab. There is a live engagement poll running right now. We'll come to that in just a minute or so to get situated and get to know about where you are in your knowledge of digital validation so that we can follow that and track that as we go through the presentation. Finally, you'll receive a follow-up email after the webinar today with the recording, with all of the slides, and with a survey link to give us feedback on what you thought about the webinar, what you'd like to hear more on in coming webinars in the future and into next year. We're already starting to plan 2026. So we want to make sure we're tailoring content to what you want to hear. Likewise, if you need more information about anything you see today, more information about Kneat GX, or want to reach out to us for anything else, you can always email us at info@kneat.com. That's info@kneat.com. So a little bit about today's agenda. We have our welcome and housekeeping items here. We're going to do that audience engagement poll. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kneat as a company and Kneat GX as our software before we dive into the featured presentation on USP 665, how Kneat enables faster validation, and then get our key takeaways, outlooks for the future before we move on to your live Q&A at the end with our speakers. So this is our engagement poll. Let's take a survey, a quick poll of our audience here and see where are you on your journey to digitizing validation. Click into that poll tab on the right-hand side of your video and let us know. The poll's running currently. Does it start today with this webinar? Do you have some discussion done? You're in initial discovery, some prep work and discussions are done, but you haven't launched quite yet. Or are you about to or just launched your first digital validation project? Or maybe you've got 1 or 2 launched already and you're considering how to scale. Maybe your organization has multiple sites. You have a lot of validation that needs to happen. You're happy with the results so far, and you're just considering how to move forward and scale up your validation approach. We've got a few answers coming in here. It's 50-50 right now on starting today and considering scale. So we've got 2 opposite sides of the spectrum going on now. I'll leave this poll open for a little bit longer so we can get those answers while I move on to some of the other content. We'll come back to this maybe before the Q&A. I want to talk a little bit about Kneat as a company here, just in case you haven't joined us before. Kneat is a publicly traded company. We are traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange and thus held to a high governance standard, and we hold ourselves to a high standard as well. We are headquartered in Limerick, Ireland, but we have operations and employees all over the world. I myself am calling in just outside of Washington, D.C. in the U.S. We've got a large customer base, an even larger partner base. Our partner organizations, such as ALTEN, are very important to us. And hearing how they work, how they use Kneat, and how their clients use Kneat is something that we always get value out of. All of our development is done in-house for Kneat GX, our digital validation platform. And we take all of that development and information security very seriously. So we stay ISO certified. There's a lot more metrics on here I'm not going to get into, and a lot more about Kneat you can learn about on our website after this webinar, but just a few data points on who we are. And Kneat GX, like I mentioned, is our software service, software as a service, digital lifecycle validation platform. And it is the platform of choice for 8 of the top 10 pharma companies around the world. And here's a few points on why we are the top choice for pharma companies. We're one platform that works for any work process. We're easy to use, easy to train, easy to scale, and we allow you to be audit ready at any time, enforcing data integrity and best practices for that. Now, if you don't know what Kneat GX is or haven't seen it, I'm going to let one of our speakers, Olivia, get into that a lot more detail here shortly once we get into our featured presentation. But here are some customer results using Kneat GX. These aren't our numbers. These are numbers found in independent benchmarking studies from our customers and clients. These are just what we like to talk about. Some of these numbers: 65% fewer validation labor hours, 46% fewer process steps, and more than 40% more efficient than leading competitors in the digital validation space. Again, all of these data, or all of this data, all of these points and more can be found through case studies on our website if you're interested in more information about Kneat and Kneat GX after the webinar. But I want to make sure we're getting to our featured presentation, which is, again, like I said, about navigating USP 665 and new regulations for single-use technologies in pharmaceutical manufacturing. This is presented in partnership with ALTEN, and we have Stan van Kerkhoven here from ALTEN to give this presentation. He is the practice leader and for life sciences Benelux at ALTEN. I will let him get a lot more into his background and his biography. But safe to say, we're very happy to have Stan joining us. And from the Kneat side, we have Olivia Calder. If you've joined our webinars before, you will likely have heard from Olivia. She is one of our process validation SMEs and process engineers. She is an expert on all things process validation. So we are very happy to have Stan joining us for this presentation, and Olivia joining us to talk a little bit about Kneat as well as USP 665. So again, I'll leave the biographies, the background, and everything to them. Safe to say, we are just happy to have Stan and Olivia joining us. So I will let them take it away. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, James. I'm going to start with saying good morning, good afternoon to everybody for joining this session on the new USP 665 regulation and its implications on the pharmaceutical sector. My name is Stan van Kerkhoven, and today we will dive into the regulation itself, what it means actually for single-use technologies and how companies can effectively adapt, particularly with strategic support from partners like ALTEN and Kneat. Before we dive into the presentation itself, I want to introduce Olivia and myself and what we will be presenting for you today more into detail. So Olivia is an experienced process validation expert with years of first-hand experience running multiple validation activities in the life sciences manufacturing, including the installation of the ALTEN instance with Kneat. Based in Cleveland, Ohio, she works with Kneat customers to augment and streamline their process validation programs, as well as lead customers in initial deployment of Kneat GX for a variety of validation specialties. She's skilled in process improvement, customer service, and regulatory compliance. Olivia is a strong quality assurance professional with a bachelor degree in chemical engineering from the University of Toledo. Myself, I am a practice leader at ALTEN, combining my pharmaceutical experience and leadership to help clients actually navigate industrial challenges. With a background as a bioengineer, project manager, and experience as a senior validation and process engineer in many major pharmaceutical companies in the past. I bring both the technical insight and myself, I am mostly focused on enabling safer and more efficient medicine to the industry. Currently, I'm guiding our clients through the upcoming USP regulatory requirements of USP 665. So, okay, enough about me and Olivia. Now let's dive into the agenda. Um, the first part of our webinar will handle about the understanding, the scope, the actual impact and requirements of USP 665. We will also discuss the best practices that we see as a provider, and we will guide you or give you a guide map to compliance. After that, in the second part, Olivia will then show how Kneat can contribute with speeding up the validation activities that are implied with the new USP 665. And we will offer you also a future outlook and takeaways. And last but not least, we will give you the chance to send us questions and we will try to answer. So next, let's dive into the regulation itself and also into the origin of the USP 665. So throughout the history of the biopharmaceutical industry and the pharmaceutical industry, it has undergone a significant transformation, shifting from actually traditional glass and steel materials being used in the equipment to actually plastic based single use systems. Just think of a single use bioreactor that was developed some years ago and is now widely spread used. This transition was driven by some key factors, key drivers, which I've listed here. And I will go into detail with the first two because I think those are the most important ones. I will leave out the rest of them. You can read them later on, but it would drive me too long for this presentation. So, one key driver, the first one is flexibility and efficiency. So, single use technologies will allow manufacturers to easily reconfigure product setups for different kind of drugs or campaigns, which is particularly valuable for contract manufacturing and multi-product facilities. Just think of a facility that needs to produce 10 different drugs in the same month, which is not unlikely, I would say, but they can easily switch between drugs with a single-use bioreactor, for example. Nowadays, single-use systems are actually designed today, and tomorrow we will get them even ready for use. Also, faster turnarounds are a key driver to more plastic. For example, when you use plastic, it will eliminate the need for cleaning and sterilization of between batches. You don't need to clean or sterilize your bioreactor in steel anymore. You just switch out one single-use bioreactor to another one. This speeds up production cycles and enables you fail-fast approaches in clinical development and gets us with the most important driver, cost reduction. So savings can arise indeed from eliminating intensive cleaning, sterilization, and the validation steps for these equipment, decreasing labor, water, and chemical use, and eventually save costs. Building and operation facilities with disposable plastic systems require also less capital investment due to smaller equipment footprint and reduced infrastructural needs. Therefore, the industry has shifted to more single-use systems. The other drivers, I will leave them open for you to read. Otherwise, we'll be here for the next 2 hours. But of course, what about the safety of those plastic materials? As we increasingly rely on plastic materials in the pharmaceutical processing and packaging, especially the single-use systems, there is a potential risk of certain compounds that will leak or migrate from the plastic into the pharmaceutical product. These compounds are known as extractable and leachables. There is a difference between extractable and leachables. Extractables are actually chemical substances which can be extracted from plastic under aggressive conditions. Just think of a highly caustic solution run through a plastic liner, or a high temperature that being used in the production process. For example, 80 degrees. Your plastic will get a little bit softer at 80 degrees, and certain compounds can then leak into it. Leachables, on the other hand, those are compounds that migrate actually from the plastic to the drug product under normal processing conditions. Now, why does this matter? And for that, I will tell you a little story about not the pharmaceutical industry, but actually a story about pacifiers. Pacifiers that 20 years ago were used in for babies, and those pacifiers contained in the plastic of the pacifier a certain compound called bisphenol A. And bisphenol A was migrating from the plastic into the mouth of the baby and also into the body of the baby. This had some bad results, because this bisphenol A would mimic actually hormones in the human body, with of course some uh, yeah highly toxic effects in babies, and it's now forbidden in the use of these plastics, of course. So, and this could happen also in the pharmaceutical industry, because any unknown, uncharacteristic chemical could migrate from the plastic into your drug product. And that's why actually the USP 665 is there to play a vital role. It sets clear scientific guidance and standards for evaluating these extractable and leachables. It provides also a rigorous framework for testing, risk assessment, and control strategies. And implementing USP 665 will help manufacturers actually to first characterize the chemical profile of their plastic materials, then determine which compounds can be uh, dangerous, determine which product can actually leak into your product, and then mitigate your risks. So, in the next slide, oh, I'm sorry, I'm too fast. I hope it will load that you can see it. I'm afraid not. Okay, so this new regulation is more than just a compliance requirement. You will need to do actually a reassessment and reformulation of your plastic materials that you are being used. So it requires an in-depth characterization of the materials to ensure chemical and physical compatibility with your processes. And in some cases, even reformulating your material choices to minimize the risk of harmful extractable or leachables reaching into the product. This stage can be resource intensive, but it's essential to guarantee patient safety and product integrity in the long term. Yeah, thanks. Secondly, adaptation of manufacturing processes and validation programs. USP 665 doesn't only affect your material selection, it also reshapes actually the manufacturing itself. You will have to choose your materials and maybe adapt it to minimize contamination and material degradation. Also, validation programs will actually change, because in the past you had more focused on the equipment and process performance, and now you need to incorporate detailed extractable leachable testing as part of the scope. And companies must develop a robust protocol to monitor and control potential contaminants introduced by these polymeric materials throughout the production. Thirdly, enhanced supplier collaboration and documentation, because polymeric materials often come from different kind of suppliers. Also, the collaboration with your suppliers is absolutely needed, because they will need to provide you details about their plastic materials that they ship to you, and this partnership will then also approach and clarify supply chain risks early on and support timely mitigation efforts. You can be indeed a lot faster when you know it upfront which kind of compounds are actually in your product. Fourthly, also investments in analytical capacity and data management. The increased complexity and rigor of USP 665 testing demands significant investment in analytical tools and expertise. Testing protocols for extractable and leachable require sophisticated instrumentation, such as chromatography, mass spectrometry, and highly skilled scientists to perform these analyses. Alongside this, data management system must be enhanced, and of course, you will need digitalized systems to perform these protocols more rapidly. Then USP 665 was actually introduced. Oh, one back. One back. Yeah. So USP was actually firstly introduced in May 2022 as a first publication. In May the 1st on 2026, it will be already be you need to comply to it. So it's very, very short. As I told you already, material selection, you need to find your chemical and physical compatibility. You will, secondly, there are also the the manufacturing controls. You will need to limit your contamination and degradation of the materials. And you will need your testing protocols. Testing protocols, I will later on describe how this will more affect how you will need to make your testing protocols, and how external labs can actually help you with that. Also, you need to be flexible and efficient, because these can help you with throughout the complete supply chain and manufacturing lifestyle. Okay, so now let's see how we can get to a more that we can get to a to get ready for compliance actually. So next slide. Yes, thank you. So first of all, how to get ready for compliance. That's for you the most important thing that you want to know. Is first you need to understand your USP 665 requirements. You need to familiarize yourself with actually the USP 665. You need to find out where are my plastic components also in my process, and therefore you can conduct a risk assessment. So first you need to find all of your plastic components. You need to find also the contact. So where does this plastic have contact with my product? How long? What are the conditions? And also your product characteristics. For example, some products can have a bigger impact on these plastics, so they can leak out more easily. Then you will base on this risk assessment a certain risk to that score. And with that risk score, you then have to make a testing plan. A testing plan for all of your plastic components, your component material, that then will, you need to do certain, yeah, the testing will involve actually putting your plastics into certain media where these extractable and leachable then will leak out of your material, and then you need to analyze with certain technologies which kind of compounds will have leaked out of it. That's where you can easily partner up with qualified labs. I personally, I think there are already some very good labs that have done these tests for other pharmaceutical companies. They have their protocols ready for it. They know for low, medium, and high risk compounds what they need to test. And they can actually execute your testing and then also analyze the results. Once you have your results, and that would mean, okay, these compounds leak out of your uh, plastic materials under these conditions, then you will actually see with a toxicologist which compounds are the most toxic. Uh, when you do that, you bring that back to your risk assessment. You will impose certain changes to your process, because you will see that certain compounds will be too toxic or leak out of your product with a high risk. Then you need to leave them out, or you will have to change the material itself, go back to stainless steel, or change the plastic itself. And then you need to prepare yourself indeed for a change. You need to change your documentation again. You need to do your validation again and be audit ready. Okay, next slide. Okay, so when you prepare for compliance for USP 665, it's a critical step that requires a well-planned and proactive approach. So let me briefly outline really best practices if you do such an exercise. First of all, you need to review your current materials and testing strategies. You need to understand exactly what polymers are being used in your process, how they have been tested already so far, because a lot of companies have done already some really good testing, but it may be a little bit different than what is outlined in the USP 665. So you need to do also your detailed gap analysis, and this will be done as best with a good risk assessment. This analysis uh, highlights areas needing improvement, whether in material selection or testing protocols or quality controls. It's also uh, essential to implement targeted training programs for your regulatory, quality, and technical teams, because USP 665 will also introduce new kind of concepts in and expectations, and everyone needs to be involved to fully understand the requirements and their role in achieving compliance. Given the increased scope of testing and quality control, allocate sufficient resources, both in terms of personnel and analytical capabilities, to manage these enhanced demands efficiently. This includes upgrading your lab instruments if you need to do, and data management systems. Equally important is your close collaboration with your suppliers. Work with them to validate the quality and compliance of your incoming materials, ensuring transparency and traceability throughout your supply chain. Finally, adopt a risk-based approach. You need to first prioritize your compliance efforts on those components and processes with the greatest potential of impact on product safety. These targeted focus will help you to manage resources efficiently and address the highest risks first. By following these best practices, companies can not only meet USP 665 requirements, but also strengthen their overall manufacturing robustness and safeguard patient safety. Okay, next slide. So, if we prepare for USP 665, we've seen already with our customers some challenges that they encounter. And one of those challenges is uh, resource constraints. For instance, when you're implementing uh, the comprehensive extractable and leachable testing, updating your quality systems, managing supplier compliance can demand significant time uh, and financial investments, of course. And many companies face internal resource limitations, especially the small or mid-sized organizations. And this is where actually partners like ALTEN and Kneat can help you, because they can offer expert consultants who augment your internal teams, bringing proven regulatory experience and scientific know-how, and reduce the burden on your staff. Also, with Kneat, you can speed up your compliance activities as validation and optimize your resource allocation. Secondly, a little bit also with the resource constraints is your technical expertise gaps. So, extractable leachable testing requires specialized, not only uh, analytical methods, advanced instrumentation, but also expert interpretation of these complex chemical data. And not every company has this technical expertise in-house. Where a company like ALTEN can help you is that we have actually built a roadmap uh, with a dedicated scientific team skilled in the latest extractable and leachable methodologies and USP 665 requirements. We can provide you with end-to-end support from study design to method validation to actually data evaluation and even regulatory uh, documentation. Thirdly, supply chain complexity. So, as I already told, you need to work with your suppliers, and managing consistency and compliance across this complex supply chain can be challenging. And sometimes uh, service providers can offer you help, like ALTEN, where, for instance, ALTEN can help you with supplier audits, material qualification programs, and clear communication channels to ensure strict adherence to USP 665 throughout the supply chain. A fourth challenge that many pharmaceutical companies face is regulatory uncertainty and change management. So, when you need to transition to USP 665 compliance, it demands changes to manufacturing procedures, documentation practices, and quality systems, all while you are preparing for regulatory inspections. And organizations can struggle to keep pace up with the evolving expectation of uh, the regulatory instances. How ALTEN can help is ALTEN can support you with this change management with tailored training programs that we have ready and audit preparation. So now I would like to give you a example of how ALTEN then can how we build actually our roadmap to compliance with USP 665, and we divide it into three big blocks. And what ALTEN can do for you is actually we had an expert team that we composed, and we looked at the USP 665 regulation, and then uh, we went to search how would we go from USP 665 uncompliant to compliant. And we proposed it in three main areas. We did a process mapping that we can do for you. We will do the risk assessment and then build your remediation plan. Now I will go more into detail on each activity on the next slide. If he wants to load the next slide. Oh, sorry, too far. Yeah, one more slide. Yeah, there is the gap assessment. So the first thing that we need to do is actually dive into your processes and do the complete gap assessment. And in the gap assessment, we made actually already a tool that we use for all of our risk assessments at customers for USP 665. We will go first. We will go to your processes, have a look where the plastic components are in your processes. We will list all of your plastic components, but also we will list the duration of that it will have with your product, not only the duration, but also the process conditions. And we have made a list that we use to identify the risk with, to see which process conditions are the most stringent or most harsh for your plastic materials. Based on that, we have made a medium, low, and high risk process conditions together with these plastic materials. And then based on this composition, we will then move forward to actually the testing part. And for the testing part, we will move to the next slide. And there you see what we do is actually we take our risk assessment. We have made our 3 different risks of our components, and then what we will do is test them through fully with in compliance with the USP 665 with the test conditions that USP 665 will describe for low, medium, and high risk compounds. When we have those done, we will go mostly of the time to qualified labs, because qualified labs is easily to work with because they already have their protocols ready. They already have their method validation done. So it's easily to give those compounds to them, and then they will give you back the results. And the results then came with okay, these compounds can leak into your product. With that list, we will go to a toxicologist, which then determines for us actually what is the risk of this compound in the human body. He will then assess what is the risk to patient safety. If we have those scores back from our toxicologists, then we move into the next phase, and that will be the remediation plan. And that will be on the next slide. Yep. And here you see back our risk assessment. And we use this risk assessment actually as a complete whole, that we put into our documentation system, and that we can actually show to our auditors, who then will show or that pharmaceutical companies can use to show to auditors to see that we've fully have searched for every compound available in our process tray. Then, if we see that there is a high risk for a certain material, then we will move it more. We will move it and we will change actually this material out. So that was our plan. So we can go from a complete risk assessment to a complete remediation plan with a document that can easily be incorporated in Kneat and always be available. But that drives us to the next chapter of our webinar, and I will leave the word to Olivia for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stan. I do want to say I'm very excited to be here for this webinar today. And as Stan mentioned, I was able to work with Stan and the ALTEN team to bring them into Kneat earlier this year. So I'm happy we get to work together again here and partner up to give some insight on these regulations, and then also how Kneat can help with that. So with that, I will go ahead and move into my section so I know, thank you. So I know James mentioned this at the beginning of today's webinar. He gave a little insight about Kneat and things that were important about it. So just to rehash this a little bit here, what is Kneat GX? So it is a digital validation platform. So instead of having massive protocols, massive documentation to record your validation activities in, everything is now done online. So as you saw with the statistics, our goal is to make everything easier, faster, and smarter. And with this aid, it really helps you to get to that level of time saving and efficiency. So on this slide, it mentions the different types of disciplines that can be brought into Kneat. So I know Stan touched on method validation, some of the R&D information, all of that can be brought into Kneat. You can see logbooks, equipment, CSA, CQV, anything really can be brought into Kneat. And what would happen is you would work with a process engineer such as myself, and we'd go back and forth. We'd take a look at your already existing paper-based process and see how we can bring that into Kneat as efficient as possible. And then also using all of the Kneat tools that we have to digitize it in the best way possible. So you get the time saving and you have all the resources at your disposal. Okay, so taking a look at Kneat and USP 665. So Stan touched upon a lot of important documents through introducing the USP 665 new regulations. So in this list here, I have a couple documents that can be brought into Kneat that also relate to USP 665. I know there's a bunch more that I haven't listed here, such as gap assessments, other documentation, but things can be brought into Kneat such as the risk assessments. And we do have risk entities now. That's a new feature with Kneat version 9.5. So I will touch on that in a couple of slides, but we do have risk entities. You do have the ability to pull that information into your risk assessment. And then same with gap assessments as well. Kneat does support Excel type documents. We have file entities, or we can bring it in as an attachment or a table. And then, of course, as you're working with your suppliers to see what studies they have done, what documents they have done, you can take those documents and bring them into Kneat as an attachment. So I have worked with customers in the past where we have a document specific to vendors or specific to suppliers where you attach all of their documentation into that document. You can cross-reference it, and it's there for you to use if it's called upon in an audit. I know in my past experience prior to working with Kneat, I was in process validation. It was a paper-based process, and I can't tell you how many times we would lose track of where a tech document was routed from a supplier. It's in a subfolder of a subfolder of a subfolder, and no one knows where it is. So Kneat definitely has the benefits of being able to easily search things and have that simple organization structure to find things when you need them. And then, of course, the validation packages from suppliers. So any supplier documentation can be brought into Kneat as an attachment. Or if you are performing your own studies, for example, extractable and leachable, which applies here, you can have that protocol within Kneat to record pass-fail, attachments as well, anything that would work for you there. You can also bring method validation into Kneat as well. So just a couple examples on how this ties into all the great stuff that Stan just presented on. But long story short, anything that you have for your process can be brought into Kneat for easy storage. So now I do want to touch on difficulties with paper-based systems and how Kneat can improve that for you. And I do want to touch on the main things that apply to USP 665. So everything I have listed here is just based on my past experience with the paper-based system. As I mentioned, I did find difficulty tracking documents in our system or in a hybrid system where you're using paper-based and then also some sort of electronic document management system. So it can be difficult to track things down if you aren't super organized. It's also daunting to enter into your fireproof room where there's thousands of binders and you're trying to find the one that you're looking for. So it can be difficult there. Also, the next two are just difficulties with documents as well, misplacing things, difficult to find them. There's always the risk of damaging documents. For the misplaced documents, sometimes I remember in my previous job, somebody would put an important form in the little sleeve of a binder in the cover. And again, no one knew where it went. So we're looking in binders, trying to find it. But with Kneat, everything will be digital. So you no longer have those issues. And then also retention periods. So you always have to have an SOP or some sort of documentation that discusses how long you need to keep a document for, when is it okay to obsolete or retire it. And that's all comes with a paper-based system as well. When you have paper sitting around, how long can you keep it there for before you're able to dispose of it? So going into the benefits here, so the workspace is searchable. That's a really big one. You can search for a word within the body of the document. You don't even need to know the title, and it will come up with a nice list of different documents that you may be looking for. So that issue where you're trying to find a document and you don't know where it is in your stack of binders is minimized through this. Of course, everything is electronic now, so electronic execution is very beneficial. You can bring your laptop or an iPad into the lab or the clean room while you're executing your studies. It's all easy to navigate, and of course, we're following the Alcoa principles through the electronic execution. And then we have electronic review and approval. So again, in the past, especially during COVID times when everybody was remote, it was difficult to have certain personnel come on site to sign off on a protocol or sign off on a form that we needed signed off on. So this way, everything is electronic. You can sit at your desk at your job and sign off on a protocol, or if you do have work from home flexibility, you can do that from home. So that's a really great benefit. And then with the document retention, that's no longer an issue. The documents will always be available. We do have regular backups, so if something happens, you do have the ability to use one of those backups, but that happens very rarely. But everything will always be there, so you no longer need the policy of how long can we keep these documents around. They'll always be there unless you choose to obsolete them for whatever reason. And then just a couple more things on benefits. So I know I briefly discussed risk entities a few slides ago. This is a new feature with 9.5 of Kneat, the new version. So it is a little small here, but in this very first top screenshot, these are risk entities that I have created in entity mode. It's very easy to create your risk entities. You just consistently select the new button, create them, and then you can add the information that applies to the actual entity. And then those entities can tie into your risk assessment document. So that's that middle screenshot there with the table, risk ID, risk description, etc. You can pull those risk entities into documents. They can also be global risk entities. You can use them across multiple documents if you wish to. But here you can pull in the attribute data from the entity that is important to you into your document. And we also have some color coding. If things don't match, you would see the little green flags in the upper left-hand corner turn red, so you have that visibility as well. And then the lower screenshot may not apply as much to extractable and leachables in this case, but I added this here just in case it may be beneficial for somebody to see. With these risk entities, they also can be pulled into our Kneat real-time RTM. So here you can see my risk has been tied to my URS that I traced it to in the table above, and it is all captured there. So you have that ability to trace and see that in your traceability matrix. And just one other item here, I do want to walk through entity masks and attachments. So in the previous slide, you saw an entity, a risk entity, and I used a base risk entity to create that entity. So if there is different data, attribute data specifically within that risk entity that you don't find is beneficial, you can come into the configuration entity mask area in this first top screenshot. And there's little trash can emojis or symbols next to the different pieces of attribute data. So you can make this yours completely. You can remove different pieces of attribute data that's not important to you, and you can also add things that may be missing in the list. So completely configurable, you can make the risk entity yours. And then the last piece is the attachment. So I know I spoke to this a couple slides ago as well, but you can bring in attachments to your specific protocols. So if you are performing the testing needed for this extractable, leachable regulation, you can add attachments here showing your proof, showing your tabular results, your graphical results, anything that would be beneficial to you. And then this lower table is something common. This is a common setup that I have set up for customers in the past, where you have a document that's only for supplier documentation and you add their different attachments in here as PDFs for you to reference when you need them. So you have our extractable and leachable study, different component certs in here. So anything you need can be brought into Kneat as attachments, and then you can cross-reference this to other documents. Anything that would be beneficial to you, this is here for your benefit. All right. And
Okay.
I believe I'll hand it back to you, Stan.
Thank you, Olivia.
Of course.
Yeah, on this last part, I just want to give you guys some future outlooks and takeaways with Kneat. Not only with Kneat, but with USP 665, of course. So first of all, USP 665, looking ahead, will drive also innovation by incentives. And for example, as I already talked about it, the, the, the the deployment of new materials. So USP 665 will drive also new materials coming to the pharmaceutical engineering, and also what we also would drive this USP 665 is the adoption of cutting edge analytical techniques to really search for these extractable and leachables. And thirdly, also the optimization of manufacturing processes. Just think of less rigorous process conditions to these plastic materials, or maybe yeah, getting more efficient on that way, of course. Next to the optimization that it could drive is also USP 665 can also drive further success through really strong collaboration. Like I told before, the strong collaboration between pharmaceutical companies, their suppliers, and maybe also the service providers like ourselves and Kneat. If you want to speed up your validation with digitalizing it, surely USP 665 will give you a strategic extra edge. In the last one, I want to give you some last takeaways. So USP 665 will mark a significant new regulation requirement, as we talked through it already, and compliance will demand a robust risk-based approach, because 2026 is just around the corner. And preparing early, therefore, is critical. So start preparing. But don't be afraid. ALTEN and Kneat can offer you a strategic end-to-end support. And finally, USP 665 will present also an opportunity for innovation of your processes, your equipment that you will use, and operational. excellence. That's what I wanted to give you in this last slide by the takeaway. And now I think we are ready to answer all of your questions. So I will leave it up to the questions coming to us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stan. Thank you so much, Olivia. That was a great presentation. We do have one question so far in from the audience. I'm going to give the audience a little bit of time to submit their questions now. We'll go over as many as we can live in the next few minutes before we hit our hour here, but want to address always the most frequently asked questions for anybody who joined a little bit late after my introduction. You will receive in the coming days, what is it? It's Wednesday. So either tomorrow, if not tomorrow, then Monday, a follow-up email from Kneat with the recording link to view the recording of this webinar. It'll be hosted on our website on the Kneat.com's webinars page on demand. And you'll also receive a copy of all of the slides that were gone over today. So apologies with a couple issues there on the slides loading properly. We got them in, but you'll be able to see that full slide deck and peruse them for yourself through the follow-up email there. And like I mentioned before, there'll also be a link to a feedback survey to let us know what you thought about the webinar and if you'd like to hear more on this topic in the future. So our question currently in from Fabiana, can I have library 2 validation packages? This came in, I think, Olivia, during your section, so I'll send that to you first. We might need a little clarification on it, though. I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, I was wondering just for a little bit more clarification. I'm not sure if the question is, will we provide validation documents that can be utilized in Kneat? A library of validation documents, maybe. But if that is the question, I can speak on that a little bit. That is definitely where we rely on our partners like Stan and the other partners we have to provide validation documents that they already have to aid you in your validation processes. If you come to Kneat, we would expect your validation process to already be completely situated, start to finish, with your own documents. But we can definitely talk to a partner if you're interested in that, and you can leverage and use their documents if that's something you'd be interested in. So I think that may be what this is asking, but if not, we can follow up on this for sure.
Sure, yeah, I will. I'll make a note to follow up on that. Though that is so far the only question that we have. We've gone up exactly to time, so I'll just leave a moment or two. Stan, if you want to have any last words, any parting thoughts about validation in general or USP 665, we're happy to hear from you.
No, I would like to thank everybody joining our webinar, and thank, of course, you guys from Kneat for hosting it. So thank you,
Excellent.
guys.
Thank you, Stan.
This is great. Thank you, Stan.
Yeah, and thank you, Olivia, for joining us as well. Always great to hear from the Kneat perspective as well. We so value these partner webinars and hearing from our partner organizations around how they're using Kneat to help with digital validation everywhere. Nadja in the chat says thank you, and it was very interesting. Great to hear from you, Nadja. Thank you as well. If you're looking for more information about ALTEN or about Kneat, all of that information can be found on Kneat.com or ALTEN.com as well, ALTEN's website. As I mentioned before, Kneat.com has plenty of case studies, articles, blogs, write-ups on how Kneat is used for digital validation across any work process and for many different industries. And those case studies include our partners and clients and how they're using Kneat as well. You can follow us on social media, on LinkedIn and on X, to hear about upcoming events, both in person in Europe and North America, and upcoming webinars. We host a demo webinar every month. If you're looking to get more information and see Kneat GX in action, you can schedule a one-on-one demo privately with one of our sales solutions engineers, or come to our monthly demo webinar. More information about that, like I said, is on our social media or on our websites on the webinars and events page. Until then, we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, and have a great day. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.
Thank you.